Chapter 6 of Kenya's constitution. We gave unto ourselves a constitution, and in August 2010 we promulgated it and said, now this is our new way of life. And a very crucial part of that constitution is chapter 6 on leadership and integrity, which talks about, what we expect to have in terms of ethics in leadership. And we keep linking that as well to Article 10 of the Constitution. It talks about values of leadership. Now, do we see that? Do we see that as we gear up towards an election? It is not the first time that we have this conversation. What is it about going into an election, integrity around the election, and people who are seeking or already leaders managing that as we head into an election? How much money, for example, is used in an election? And for what reason? Yeah.
And I think the last, obviously, few days have brought this conversation back to the fore. But like you said, Eric, this is not the first time that we're seeing, whether it's vitriol, whether it's careless speech, mark a prelude to elections, unfortunately. And even yesterday, one of the guests we'll be speaking to in a bit, Sheila Masinde, was part of a group of civil society who was saying we cannot continue to allow this.
Yep.
Now, on the flip side, you said that this also comes down to us. So even as we get into the conversation, I want to see by a show of hands, how many of you really feel that it takes us in this room to shift things in the country? I like the way you'll all put your hands up, but when we get deeper into the reason I ask that is because I think we genuinely feel like it's up to us to shift election integrity and leadership, but when the rubber meets the road, the us in question seems to be, I don't know if the word is silent, and I don't know whether that's an unfair thing to say.
We are silent loudly.
Okay, we are silent loudly.
Silently.
And that's what we're trying to address today, but yes, let's get into the conversation.
Yeah, so we'll hear from Sheila Masinde, who's the Executive Director of Transparency International, and there's some good work that Transparency International has been doing over the years, but most recently there's a report that they're launching on the use of money and such in elections, and therefore that's raising the questions about integrity. So Sheila Masinde will be here. We're talking about elections. So of course the IEBC has to be represented, and we have the manager for legal reforms, political parties, liaison and campaign financing at IEBC, Ruth Makuthu. Then we also have from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Director of Investigations, John Lolkoloi, is here with us. And then we have from the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights, Professor Marion Mutugi. Yeah. And we have Danson Makori, who is outgoing. Have you already outgone? The outgone, immediate former director at the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, right? And we have a room full of civic engagers, active citizens, fixers, who are here, including Steve Ogolla, who is a managing partner and head of litigation at Saroni and Stevens Advocates, among others. Karibuni sana.
Yep.
Let's have an open conversation. Let's speak freely. Let's use the language that we'd like our leaders to use, right? But I'd like to start with you, Sheila, and you can take the mic. There's a lot of work that you've done on previously, in the previous elections, you and others have talked about integrity as we head into an election. In fact, you even produced a list and said these people should get a red card. These people do not deserve to be on the ballot. Well, Sheila spoke, but then there are people who said, you were ongelesha. Ongea. Ongea. They shall end up on the ballot. They ended up on the ballot. Beyond that, Kenyans said, Nyinyi Sheila ongeeni. Some of those people on your list are actually in positions of leadership today. But now there's a new report. Tell us briefly about it.
Thank you very much, Eric. It's good to be back here. And just as you said, we produced a red card list, and we always go back to that list. And I'd invite everyone to go back to our red card list done by Civil Society, National Integrity Alliance, and the one also done by the EACC. John, I believed you had a list of 241 names.
Yep.
And just check what exactly those people, the further damage they have done in this country, because a number of those have even more active cases of economic crime, corruption, and other, criminal matters. So it just tells you the danger that is posed in continuing to keep these people in office. When we say that people are not suitable for public office, I think it's something that should be taken with great import. Just also looking at what they can further do in terms of damaging the economy of the country, and that's why we're still at it in regard to leadership and integrity. But for us, we've largely focused also on the question around, or rather the confluence of money and politics, because we believe that's also driving a lot of corruption in this country. It takes a lot of money to get into political office. And it's not just political office, even appointed office now. And that is why I think we are seeing people who are not suitable, to hold office still being cleared, because it's money that is talking. It's your access to the center, access to the political elite that really matters, and not really your qualifications or your suitability in terms of the ethical and moral conduct. And that is why we feel this is being overlooked. But primarily what we did is we undertook a study just asking the question that we've had Chapter 6 of the Constitution, which was promulgated in now 16 years. And for many of us, we believe that once we got Chapter 6 locked in, it will change the leadership and the political landscape of this country. Has it? No, it hasn't. Why? And yet it is well written and entrenched in the Constitution about the qualifications one needs, and also the not just qualifications but also the suitability. Who is this person? What characteristics should they have? What are the values that we expect, from this person that gets into public office? And so we asked, why is there still that tension between what we have in the Constitution, what we have in the law, what we have in our regulations, and what we see in public office? We also asked, why do many citizens, if you speak to citizens, they'll tell you their aspirations in terms of leadership and integrity. They abhor corruption, they abhor theft of public resources.
Or so they say.
But now when it comes to election and consideration for people who hold public office, why are they still being elected if it's citizens who are making that determination? So we asked those questions, and what we found is that there are a number of factors. One is, of course, that this issue around integrity, it is not being legally enforced. Instead, it is almost like a political negotiation. So when people get into office, we're not really following the legal process, but more or less it is determined by politics. Have I supported a campaign? Am I connected to a political elite? And am I able to pay money, spend money to get access to that office, and so on? There's also the question around the effectiveness of our public institutions which are responsible for vetting. And one thing we found is that they simply don't have the resources to be able to conduct and oversee that vetting process as is required. And then the other aspect is around coordination. Some have information in terms of the lack of suitability of some of these people seeking public office, but it is in one institution. Is that information shared? So those are the kind of things that also came out. And then one last point is also just looking at what Parliament does in terms of vetting. It's a charade, when you see the kind of questions that are asked, and there's really no follow-up. So if I declare I'm asked, what is your net? In fact, it's the second question that one is asked. What is your net worth? So I say I'm worth 5 billion. But does someone follow up to actually check, so how did you get this 5 billion? If I declared that I'm worth 5 billion in 2022, and I come back 3 years or 5 years later and I say, now I'm worth 10 billion, who asks, so how did you get this 5 billion?
Who is following that paper trail?
Exactly, and why are you the only ones making money in this economy and everyone else is closing this?
Sheila, we'll come back because it's great that, you have this evidence with you, and we'll come back and continue to interrogate it line by line. I wanted to speak to John Lolkoloi, who's the Director of Investigations of EACC. And, Kenyans see arrests and headlines and then silence. So how many high-profile corruption cases have actually been concluded? Speak even in the last year alone, just briefly, because then it matters that we see accountability if we're able to really have faith in the institutions.
Thank you very much. Let me first of all restate the mandate of EACC, which is to promote integrity and combat corruption through law enforcement, public education, and prevention. And therefore, to the specific question of arrests, for the last 1 year, we completed 141 investigations at different levels, some high profile, some middle, and some maybe what you will call other forms of corruption. And we did forward those files to the Director of Public Prosecutions. As you know, we do not have the power to prosecute. Some of those cases have come back, and we have actually effected the arrests, and some we are still awaiting the decision of DPP. And if Kenyans will look at our website, they will be able to see the very, very many cases that are actually before court. Every time we effect arrests, we present that information to the public, and we are also recovering public resources. Of course, there have been cases where some high-profile persons, once we get the consent, then they go to the High Court to stop their prosecutions. And because that is also provided by the law, the EACC and the DPP pursue their appeals to ensure that these people, especially the governors and other high-profile persons, also face prosecution. So we have quite a number, and then so many ongoing cases that we may not maybe mention one by one because of course, confidentiality and not to interfere with the evidence. But for those that have been charged, it is public knowledge.
John,
thank you.
Like Sheila said, the EACC, in the run-up to the last election, you also had a red list, said, we have some ongoing investigations against these individuals who have presented themselves to be aspirants for political office. They went ahead and got onto the ballot, and some of them even got elected, right? From that list of that time to now, have you seen some people drop off that list because, well, you realize that your investigation did not produce anything? Or have you seen, like Sheila is saying, some of those that even got into office having higher cases or more serious investigations started by the EACC?
Yes, indeed, in the last election, we got about almost 20,000 names from IEBC, and we were able to flag 241. And what we do is we do a very, very objective and impartial assessment so that we also abide by the rule of law. So for the persons that we cited were those whose investigations were at an advanced stage, they were adversely mentioned. There were those who had already files we had submitted to the DPP with recommendations to charge. There were those who had already been charged and were facing criminal trial. And there are those who were actually convicted and had appealed the sentence. And when the list went to the IEBC, they were all cleared. Of course, I know the representative from IEBC will talk about the setbacks in Article 99 that talks about you have to exhaust the appeal procedures. And what I can comment is that some of those people, because Kenyans went ahead and elected them, we made that information public that these people are facing trial. Some were actually facing criminal prosecution on fake certificates, abuse of office. And Kenyans went ahead and elected them, and they have continued to do what they did before. So at some point, this is a conversation that we also have to push to Kenyans so that when they have the information, then they make the best decisions. Thank you.
I wanted to, because there's a question I have for Danvas in a moment, but anybody can take the microphone and answer this because he's with the outgoing National Cohesion Integration Commission, NCIC. Can one of you respond or react to some of the remarks that you've seen being made over the last 2 days, and what message you think it sends about what people in power feel that they can do, how untouchable they feel? All this rhetoric that we've heard, I think we have someone there, we can just pass the microphone. Speak to that specific rhetoric, then Danvas will come back and talk about the importance of how that rhetoric should be held to account.
Yeah. Thank you very much. My good name is Haya Dennis. I have studied law at the University of Nairobi. I represent people with disability and even at the DCP party. Now, the chapter 6 of the Constitution, which talks about integrity. And Article 73 of it defines authority as a public trust, right? And proceeds to link it up with Article 10, which even talks about transparency and the nationhood and all that. So really the rhetoric that has been there does not really merge, it beats the logic of these very articles, and it does not bring it up on the public trust, because really when the people elect leaders to represent them, there is a social contract that has been there. So if they go ahead and breach that very social contract, then it beats the logic. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. You're the DCP?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Danvas, I think I wanted to get the microphone to you and just speak to that. I think when we hosted you in studio, I believe it was a few months ago, I think last year, we had a list of people whose rhetoric has, it's compromised integrity in many ways. We're seeing it come again. It's almost like it's cyclical. But sometimes organizations like NCIC, people will say, okay, are we really doing enough? Because what we've witnessed over the last 2 days should not in fact happen. But if NCIC had bite, then maybe we'd have people toe the line, because they'd say, hey, I know there's an organization keeping check. So bite and bark. Is it really there?
Thank you so much. Yes, you actually had me a couple of months ago. And I did submit the list, actually, just like they had a list too. And it was important that we do that. Now, I am absolutely not surprised with the rhetoric that's going on. And I just let me make it very clear, it's going to get worse. It will get worse, I can guarantee you that, because the brakes have been removed from the vehicle. It ended to come an end, as we say, you understand. And the issue of bite, there's a legal framework which these institutions operate, whether it's EACC, whether it's us, whether the legal framework which you operate in. And you can only do so much as per the law. The law which these same politicians who are misbehaving are the ones who write it. So they will intentionally write or construct these laws actually to give them the leeway to do exactly what they're doing. And we have amendments, actually, NCIC does a number of amendments actually to seek to address these specific issues. And then when you push forward, whether it's prosecution, whether it's other means, of course, as you've heard, there's always legal challenges. I would like for me to rephrase this conversation just a little bit. Yep. Give me just a couple of minutes, because I want to our approach to Chapter 6 is not, to me, the way we should approach it, because we always complain about it. Sheila said just right now, everybody hoped when it was written it will solve the problem. Yeah, it hasn't. My colleague here, John, has said that when 241 names were given, Kenyans still elected the same people. Okay. Now there is a reason why, and the same release that I submitted when I was here, of people we have who are under investigation, people who it is public. It actually is public, and most of them actually are politicians who we all know very well. Yeah, these are public. They're all public individuals. So the question is, the same people who incite, who have incendiary comments or statements, who have integrity issues, who've been listed, who everybody knows he's pretty much just a bad person. He'll be elected. And so I think for me, I just want just if you oblige me for 2 minutes, so we can change this conversation of why. Because the why is very important. Because we are addressing symptoms. Yeah, right now. We've seen what happened in the past couple of days with our leaders. So that's symptomatic. It is not root cause. So if we go to the root cause, then we can actually say, okay, do we really have hope to change the nation or not? Because that's the question actually you've asked. Can we do something about it? You ask people to lift their hands. Can we do something about it? So just 2 minutes, and so that we can, if do I have 2 minutes?
Go ahead.
Okay. Now, here is the thing. Our idea of a state, or what a state is, that's very important. And the Constitution is very. We need to really go to the philosophical underpinnings and concept of what a state is and the Constitution. And there's two competing things or narratives or concepts which we understand. So originally, state defined by Aristotle and Plato was this idea of people, association coming together to meet all their social, cultural, political, economic needs. And this thing called, they will call a state, which is Aristotle and Plato, was self-sufficient. Now, the Romans came and said, no, it's the jurisdiction of law, that's whereby our citizens are given rights and their responsibility determined. Now, much later, recently, which is about 400 years ago, the modern idea of a state was defined by Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and Jacques Rousseau. Now, these people had this concept or opposite concepts, which now addresses chapter 6. Now, according to Hobbes, human beings are fundamentally flawed. Okay? Because we're fundamentally flawed, and also John Locke, therefore, our engagement, so if I'm engaging with you, it is out of selfish interest. Me, I'm selfish, you're selfish. Therefore, we will always collide and fight. Therefore, to avoid that, we need to come together and agree. The agreement, John Locke called it social contract. Somebody said it. That is the idea. John Locke, in the 16th century, said, what is social contract? Then he went further and said, because of that, we must submit ourselves, therefore, to a higher authority or power, which we have popular sovereignty. Okay? That's important. Now, Rousseau is opposite. He says, we are essentially good people. Therefore, because we are good people, we have external things that affect us as people. Therefore, we need to protect ourselves from those things. Now, here is the question I'm going to ask ourselves here on chapter 6. Are we fundamentally flawed human beings
or intrinsically
good people? Because then that will address the issue of chapter 6 and integrity. And that's what we need to define integrity. Yes.
I'm with John Locke.
That we're
fundamentally flawed. We are. We do not want... Otherwise, because if we're intrinsically good, we'd be having a majority of good people in all positions of leadership.
We're intrinsically good and we've been compromised by fundamentally flawed individuals.
Oh, really?
We'll do this, we'll do all these
so
things.
We have innate good in us.
We do.
But a little bit of it. And then the bigger side of the bottle is the flaw.
We'll come back and interrogate that. I think we need to go into a break. It's coming up to 8:30. We're talking about elections, leadership, and integrity. We're continuing this conversation with a group of stakeholders in the room. We invite your views as well online. We'll come back and continue. Are we intrinsically good or are we fundamentally flawed? We'll come back and answer some more questions. Just before we get back into conversation, a few comments online. Austin Amala says, EACC talks about integrity, but recent recruitment had no public shortlist or final list. We only hear people reported back to work. Shouldn't we publish the names of people hired to ensure transparency? Sherman HQ, politics is a contact sport, not a monastery. When attacked personally, responding sharply is natural. Staying silent risks appearing weak and allowing attacks meant to demean you take root. Kenyan Josh finally says too much on this. He's going back to the initial conversation around the securities exchange, but it's a contact sport. But we're in conversation right now. It's Janet Mbogwa and Eric Latif, fixing the nation one conversation at a time, talking about elections, leadership, and integrity, especially off the back of a report that Transparency International published. So we'll continue with the conversation.
Money in politics, that's what Transparency International has been working on. And they've seen that link between money, politics, leadership, and integrity, and wondering how that all is affecting our politics, our elections, into our politics and governance throughout. We've had, as we took the break, Danvas Makori had put the challenge to us, from where are we standing? Are we intrinsically good people? Or are we fundamentally flawed people who then are trying to be good? Who then we say we subject and submit ourselves to some higher authority that we establish. But if we are flawed, even that authority that we establish will be flawed. The issue is then how do we make a good one? I'd like to come to the IEBC. Ruth Makuthu is the manager for legal reforms, political parties liaison, and campaign financing. Ruth, surely there's law, there's an expectation that IEBC shall set regulations on campaign financing, and we saw in the last election, by the way, IEBC did that. Some people said, half-heartedly published some regulations on campaign financing, and Parliament used that to say, you were late, forget about it, we are not going to adopt it, out of the window, spend whatever you want to spend, right? How do we control, what's the importance of actually capping campaign financing? Because it speaks directly to what TI has worked on, money in politics. What's the importance of that? And what powers does the IEBC have in controlling how much money is spent for elections? I'm not saying campaigns, because campaigns, you'll tell me it's when IEBC has gazetted, this is the campaign period. How much is used for campaigns and elections?
Thank you, Latif. Maybe just to start this conversation on campaign financing, if we have had a chance to look at the Kriegler report, one of the challenges that were raised in the Kriegler report was the fact that there was an issue about illicit money or quote-unquote dirty money that came into the campaigns, the election campaigns. And for that, one of the recommendations was that there was need to have money in elections being regulated. And that is what birthed Election Campaign Financing Act, which we currently have. Unfortunately, we have not had a great opportunity to implement that law. And the reason was in 2013, remember the elections were conducted on 4th March 2013. We had that bill presented to Parliament, but unfortunately it was not enacted until December 2013. I know some think that it's just because you'll always see 2013 at the end, but it was actually gazetted in December 20,
after the election.
After the election, 9 months after the election. So following the enactment, we started, working on the regulations, and we managed to publish. The regulations were not enacted, of course. And in 2016, what the Commission did was to enact, or rather publish in the Gazette, the spending limits. Remember, when you are regulating campaign financing, you can either use limits or you allow different parameters for political parties and candidates to submit to the Commission or the EMB for purposes of regulation. But when you look at our Election Campaign Financing Act, it allows or gives directives to the Commission under Section 18 to actually come up with spending limits. And that is what the Commission has been doing in 2017 and in 2022. And we don't just sit down and come up with limits. No. We actually sit down and use formula that are governed under the campaign financing law. That is population, the square kilometer, and among others, transport, campaign personnel, etc., because those are the things that actually bring the cost for that particular candidate or political party. And remember, you're supposed to have different limits for the different constituencies, for the different counties, for the national election, and all that. So when we come up with those limits, there are those who come up and say, these limits are way high, but we're only giving you the maximum. Nothing stops you from spending 0 shillings, right? Okay? And because we have to look at those parameters when we are coming up with those limits. And yes, we believe that it is necessary to have those limits for purposes of ensuring that there is a level playing field for everyone who is involved. Yes.
We'll come back and continue tracking that money line, I think, and pinning it back to the report by Transparency International. Steve Ogolla, I'd like to come to you and ask you plainly whether you think corruption in Kenya, and be honest, is it a legal problem? Is it a political protection problem?
The short answer is that it's not a legal problem, but let me contextualize. At the dawn of this new constitution, the constitution was celebrated for its transformative potential, its ability to inspire and renew, create and reform our institutions, and then deliver the promised governance framework that we all desired for many years. 15 years later, if you look at the constitution and look at the reports that come from our constitutional commissions, what was intended to be a breathtaking reconceptualization of our governance framework has turned out to be a recklessly compromised framework. The Constitution is today celebrated not for its transformative potential, but for its symbolic value. You can step back and say, it looks good, looks really good, but in terms of practical effectiveness, it is a peripheral anomaly. You cannot, this conversation can as well happen in 2009. It fits very well in pre-2010 conversation. you wouldn't believe that this conversation is happening 15 years after the promulgation of the Constitution. So what is the prognosis? From a legal standpoint, I can glean 3 issues. They sound complex, I must hazard that, but every complex conversation can always be broken down into what can be consumed by viewers. The reasonable viewer is the person walking from Kibera to the CBD, walking, or maybe taking a matatu, not a man in a studio in a suit. The first problem is that of legal centralism. The second problem is that of ethnic nationalism. And the third problem is that of unconstitutional constitutional deference. I can explain those concepts. Legal centralism, we tend to overemphasize the place of law and diminish or devalue the place of ideals and value systems. So unless the law provides for it, you won't act. Even common sense things like debarring someone who is charged facing a criminal offense, he's allowed to run because the law says until he exhausts all avenues of appeal.
Yeah.
But he's been convicted.
Somebody who's been
So
convicted.
what would common sense require? Common sense would require that such a person who has been convicted or someone who has been impeached should not come anywhere near public office. But you waive the sanctity of the law because you can point out to a particular provision that says until such a time that you have exhausted all avenues of appeal, your right to run must be protected. So that is a problem of legal centralism.
Right.
The flip side of centralism is autocratic legalism, which means those in power, the state elites, now know how to exploit over-reliance on the law. So they make the law in such a way that make it difficult for you to accuse them of bad manners because then they waive the sanctity. For instance, the Election Campaign Financing Act. They will tell you it has not been implemented because we don't have regulations to implement it. So you have the law, then you refuse to enact regulation, so you then, at the end of the day, you get what you want through an autocratic mechanism that underpinned by the law.
Yes.
So it's not you refusing to comply. The law is not permitting you to comply because there are no regulations.
Yeah.
That problem, no matter how much we debate and discuss, it won't go away until we devalue or we reduce over-reliance on the law.
Okay, Steve.
The second problem of ethnic nationalism, and I want to permit me to draw, just for purpose of comparison, I empathize with Honorable Tuju and his problems we've seen on social media. But what I find curious is the political elite converting what otherwise looks like a legal dispute into a political issue and an ethnic issue. And I come from SIA, and I saw my former governor, Amos Tasanga, saying, that is a SIA asset. So that's refreshing, if not depressing. It's either refreshing or depressing, depending on the lenses that you wear. But the problem of ethnic nationalism, which means that we tend to look at things through our ethnic persuasion.
Yeah.
If the person being attacked, you're sending the president and now this president and the former president to the IECC, then the Kikuyu elites and the Kalenjin elites feel like they are being targeted. And that's not a good thing. And therefore, what does the law say about people who are about the presumption of innocence? Can't we use the presumption of innocence, Eric, to protect our people from being disbarred from running? Shouldn't we take that to the court? That is the conversation that we drive to protect. We hide under that veneer of nationalism, but really, deep down that, if you peel it off, you see a very strong sense of ethnic nationalism, which contradicts our commitment to core values as Kenyans.
Tourette syndrome.
The third problem,
briefly, just to give everyone a chance,
the third problem, which I call unconstitutional constitutional deference, or what you may consider as moral relativism. You say we respect the Constitution and we defer to its institutions, but the Constitution itself has internal incoherence and internal contradictions, because the Constitution says at Article 10, which ranks very superior to Article 99, that allows those who have not exhausted their appeals to run. Article 10 is superior because in terms of hierarchy of provisions, it appears first. It delineates what we call national values. In these national values, transparency and accountability is very important in governance. Respect for dignity, service delivery. These are core values that if there is any provision in the later parts of the Constitution that seem to challenge those core values, then we are supposed to be emphasizing the core values, but we tend to defer to the later provisions, and then in essence undermine what could probably be gaining more prominence. So what is right and wrong depends on the circumstances and what is convenient politically.
Yeah.
So in the upshot, Janet, is this. We can have this debate ad infinitum, forever. But the issue will not be resolved until we realize that the quest for revival and the quest for renewal of our national spirit will begin at the family level when people have conversations at their dinner tables, and then the communities or churches and mosques, we have a shared and settled understanding of what is right and wrong. Then you can create that momentum and force the political class to adjust.
Okay.
But as long as you defer the political class,
we'll keep going round in circles.
And
I think that's fair.
And the debate will not
I think that's fair. I know in the next hour we'll open it up. We're really looking forward to hearing what the room has to say. I just want to come to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Professor Marion Mutugi, who we also hosted not too long ago. And this could have already been answered, but sometimes I think it's one of those questions which people wonder, that somebody can have such a track record, right? 15 years, 16 years after the Constitution, but you have someone facing serious integrity questions and they still run for office without consequence. Speak to us about that briefly.
Thank you very much, Janet. The mandate of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights is to promote and protect human rights. One of the rights, which is a political right, is a right to vote and be voted for, Article 38. I have heard what all my panelists, co-panelists have said. Kenya is over-legislated. We keep on saying, let's have a new law, let's have a new law, and yet the laws that we have are not fully implemented. The position of the Commission is that rights have responsibilities, and the voter, we concentrate on the responsibility of the person that is being voted for, what he should or shouldn't do. But I would like to shift the responsibility now, or the focus on the person who is voting. That person has responsibility. He is employing a worker. How many of us would employ a worker who is in court and has been convicted just because his appeal has not been exhausted? And yet we are ready to vote in people in these positions who have this record and justified by one way or the other. I think our voting has become transactional, and therefore it's willing buyer and willing seller. Yep. And once the transaction is finished, we are through. So the position of the Commission is that the voter should take responsibility and recognize that the voter is the one who really should implement the Constitution and put pressure on agencies to implement. An example is the by-elections that the by-elections that were there a couple of months ago, which the Commission monitored. Our report clearly states violations. For example, cars that we observed without number plates. We followed them through roadblocks, and they were not stopped. So the Inspector General should take responsibility. We observed open voter bribery in the eyes of the police and so forth. Let the voter take responsibility. It is not the responsibility of the voter, to the person to be voted for, just as it is not the responsibility of the person I employ, but my responsibility as the employer.
You know, Janet, Chapter 1 of our Constitution is sovereignty of the people and supremacy of the Constitution. And I think even the drafters were clear. You don't start with supremacy of the Constitution and sovereignty of the people. It starts with the people are sovereign, all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya, shall be exercised only in accordance with this constitution. Sort of the constitution is also making itself supreme there, okay? But the sovereignty of the people is key. And until that point when we know that the sovereignty of the people is number one, then you'll have an issue. Yeah. I always take issue, and I've said this even on the show, when you say a politician comes with money, kula yo pesa, ni pesa yako anyway, alafu utapigia mtu mwingine. I have a problem with that.
Right.
Because that is saying that we are encouraging corruption on one end and then punishing it or pretending to punish it on the other end.
Yeah.
So when you talk about money and politics, money comes, it's spent among the population.
It's so disturbing, and I know we'll hear from other people. In fact, I want to now bring it back to Sheila, Masinde, and what Transparency International Kenya found. You're hearing all of these sort of like diverse contributions from different sectors, and then you've also heard what Erica said. I'm just curious to hear from you. It's hard to fundamentally address this money issue if we don't address the values issue. Tell us a little bit about whether the report kind of shares that, or just your own personal thoughts on how we're going to be able to tally the two. Because I think as long as our values, and a lot of people here have spoken to it, from the legal perspective, as long as that is flawed, we'll continue to have reports that talk about elections and money and still not fix the core of it. What was sort of like the general recommendation from the report?
In regard to that, it means that we really have to engage in very broad but also deep civic education in terms of what are our national values, what really drives us, in terms of making decisions, in terms of, or even as a people. Because as many of my colleagues here on the panel have said, you can have all the laws, you can have all the institutions, all the regulations, you can constitutionalize, legalize, legislate all these issues. But if you don't address the fundamental issues of the people, for me, I ultimately, when I look at the fight against corruption, it goes down to the people and culture. I like to use the term people and culture, because our culture will determine how we progress as a country. So we may change laws and all these things, but again, it's the people who are responsible for implementation of these laws. It's the people who sit in institutions that are responsible for addressing issues around corruption or oversighting, proper conduct, whether it is financial management, running of this country, resource management and everything, So we have to fundamentally address that question of people's behavior. And one of the things that we've been pushing for a long time in regard to this whole issue around leadership integrity is behavior change. And that behavior change is not just about the leadership of this country. It has to start from citizens. We have to change our behavior in terms of how we relate with leaders, how we elect and determine who gets into office, and how we hold them accountable. But if we don't change the behavior based on, values that should guide us, then our constitution, our chapter 6 is basically then dead on arrival.
Mm-hmm. Well said. I know we're going into a break, and I know a lot of us here have contributions. So in the next hour, come ready with those contributions. You've heard from our panelists. Again, they sit at very diverse spaces that still form the most critical institutions that govern this country. So we'll be able to engage. I know we talk about fixing the nation one conversation at a time. Today, I'm just so tempted to be like, how do we fix this integrity issue? We'll just try and see how we can begin to think about it. And as all our panelists have said, it starts with us. So we'll take a short break, come back and continue opening up the conversation to you out there online and to those in the room to talk about elections and leadership and integrity in this country. It's coming up to 9 a.m.
Back, we have brought the mic to the ground. We are having a conversation in a baraza here, money in politics. Transparency International Kenya has worked on a report. They've basically just done a study of just that connection between money, politics, and what we end up having. Leadership without integrity and corruption in public service. What is that connection? As we took the break, Dr. Danvas Makori had actually asked that question. Are we, as a people, irredeemably evil people? completely flawed, or are we intrinsically good? So the question is, are we fundamentally flawed as a people, or are we intrinsically good people who then end up being influenced and captured by other very bad people? And the other question is about campaign spending, and we talked to IEBC, and Ruth was saying, look, we have a law on campaign spending, we have regulations that the IEBC has published on campaign spending, and even then, even if we cap it, it's an issue. Advocate Advocate Steve Ogolla says, look, we have all this ukabila within us, and this ukabila then ends up clouding very many things, even in how we do things, and until we go back and start at family level, at family unit, defining values at family level, then that amplifying that into our national values. We cannot start with national values and expect those national values to come to the family. But did we lose family values? Did we ever have family values anyway? Don't we know what's right and what's wrong? Maybe I want to start that question. If we know what's right and what's wrong, in terms of just money and politics, if a politician came to a rally here, na ako na kitita cha pesa, na ataka kutuachia kachai tu, you know, kachai, hii si ya kuwahonga, hii ni kachai tunawaachia, sababu nyinyi ni watu wangu. Who will take? Show of hands? The people who will take. You raised your hand very fast, lady. Sheila, please pass the mic behind you. She was like, let take.
Yeah, thank you so much. So my name is Jane Jerry. I'm the National Student Coordinator, DCP. I'm also an MCA aspirant in Gitugi Ward. It is in Murang'a County. And the reason as to why I would take the money is because you cannot talk about values when the economy itself is crushing citizens. Because let's take a look. We have an MSME owner whose business is being disrupted by these campaigns. There is overtaxation, and you expect this person not to take that 1,000 shilling na anafaa kulipa taxes. That is not logical.
Ni pesa ya nani unapeana?
Yes, I know it might be corruption money, but now, apart from that, this is our money. I need to pay taxes as the micro, small, and medium enterprise owner. So I'll take that money. Also, as a young person who is not employed, I cannot refuse to take this money, regardless of where it's coming from. What needs to change is the voting culture. I will take your money, but I will not vote for you. And that is why we see when we have empowerment programs, empowerment in quotes, we see these women in the villages being given rice and beans and 200 shillings note, and they will take that, but later on their way home, they will chant one term. Why? There is that awakening. They will take that, and they will make the right decision in the ballot.
You know, you want to be an MCA
yes.
in the next election. So do you have a budget set aside to do that thing that you're saying?
No, I do not have a budget, but...
Do you expect people to expect money from you?
No, I do not.
Why?
Because I am a young person, they should buy into my vision, and I don't have money. Even when I go to campaign, I usually tell them, look, I just graduated from campus, and I am here to sell my vision. I want to serve you. But I cannot tell Wanjiko...
So the first time you were elected, hauna pesa.
Yes.
Umeenda Murang'a County Assembly.
Yes.
Unarudi 2032. You want to be re-elected. You'll have money.
Well, that does not mean I'll have money in 2032.
No. They will expect money from you. They'll be right to expect money from you.
No, not at all.
Why? But you have a job.
I understand.
You've had a job for 5 years.
I understand.
An MCA.
But the reason as to why we are working so hard as young people to get into this position is because politics have been commercialized. And one thing that we want to put in place when we get there is to ensure that this culture dies with us. That we are coming out as young people who do not have money.
So it will die after you've been elected.
Right, because you're still enabling the culture, right?
Yeah.
Let's get a few other reactions.
Pass the mic behind you. Somebody else who also raised the hand.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is John Moher. I come from Danvas, and I also studied at the university, Dan Kimathi University Mechanical Engineering. Very unemployed. Let me start
Very unemployed.
Very unemployed. Let me start by advising my sister here. And I also vied for the seat of MCA in the year 2022 with the UDA party. In politics, there is no sympathy. And as young people, there is a video I did, and I said this. We, the young people, we must do something. Apart from selling our age as the agenda, as the main agenda in politics, we must also demonstrate some political and leadership skills, because there is no sympathy, there is no mercy. The other day, there are some people who elected, I think, Toto. She was very slim, and right now she's very heavy. So there are a few things I really want to respond to. Number one, kuna mtu anasema sisi ndio tuko na makosa, sisi wapigaji kura tunachukua pesa. Lakini sasa Latif, the government ama the system that is there and should be creating opportunities for the youth, the system that is there that should be eradicating poverty, coming up with policy that zina support Mkenya wa kawaida ili atoke kwa shida. They are the same system zina ensure that huyo Mkenya amefinywa. So what do you expect? Ukiwa na njaa, hata mimi nitoke hapa nje nipate pesa inapatianwa na hii kaunda suti yangu, mimi ndapanga line, baadaye ndawaambia mimi ni mheshimiwa. Lakini all in all, hiyo tu nilitaka nipitie, lakini tuko hapa kwa institution. Hiyo kitu imenikula kichwa sana tangu jana wenye nilisikia nakuja kwa hii debate. Na kuna siku pia nimekuwa hapa na nikasikia we have so many institutions and commissions za kufanya so much in this country. The other day tulikuwa na flooding, and you could hear we have this commission, we have this major, we have these people, we have this vocabulary, but tukienda pale kwa ground, for sure hakuna kitu ina connect na the problems facing common mwananchi. Today we are here na tumeona vile wadosi wanakanyaga juu ya gari, wanatukanana. No one is talking. Lakini tuko na institution ziko hapa zimepeana red card, tunafaa tuzipige red card pia. Okay. They are not doing anything. Ya mwisho tu. Kuna wasanii wadogo, nipeane tu example. Anytime wanaenda kuimba, there is someone by the name Ezekiel Mutua. Ni anawaambia you should not say these words. They are not good for the community. But right now, we have the president, the former deputy president, the former interior cabinet secretary. We have former cabinet secretary for devolution. National leaders wanaenda kwa national platforms, wana exchange insults. Zile insult pale mtaani, tunaambia vijana, don't say this. The commissions are silent. As a country, tunaelekea wapi? Sisi, acha tu niseme ya mwisho, naona watu wanataka kuongea sana. Imefika mahali yenye sisi kama vijana wenye wanatumika kama mobilizers na kwa decision making hatuko. We must not take side. Our side must be the right side, the truth. Juu wakili anasema wakati mwingine tuna personalize makosa inakuwa ni ya community. Maybe mtu akiba tunasema huu ni wetu, hii ni siaya asset. But saa hii sauti ya vijana, the Gen Z, the millennials, ni lazima tukatae. In fact, right now hata mahali imefika, inafika mahali hata kwenda kusema wewe una work for na president ama na deputy president, inakuwa ni aibu. Sauti ya vijana saa hii, sisi hatuko pande yote ya matusi. Na I just wish hawa watu wote miaka ingekimbia watoke kwa system. Tukuwe na a new crop of leaders wenye. Na pia tukifukuza our leaders pia commission sana. These bodies, they are too much English. Nothing happening.
Kizungu mingi.
Kizungu kubwa, as you like
Let's
to say.
come to this side. Please pass the mic, Steve, to someone behind you.
Thank you. My name is Evans Osapiri. I come from Bungoma County, Tongaren constituency. First, I want to say that on this issue of elections, the first vetting process starts at the ballot box. If I am a resident of Tongaren polling station and I'm being given 100 shillings by my area MCA, it means I'm being compromised, that I elect that person. Secondly, the IEBC. We are told, we read on newspapers that this is a member of parliament who has served for five years, or he has been in corruption. He has been swindling money from the NGCDF. His money is being handled from Nairobi. We are warned on TVs, radios, on newspapers, online. We are all over on Facebook, Twitter, that candidate so-and-so is a thief. Candidate so-and-so killed. He shot people. But back at the polling center, I know very well that that person is corrupt, that person killed, that person shot somebody, but I go electing that very person. as I elect that person, the IEBC itself also is aware that that person killed, stole money, but it clears him or her to contest for that position. So these commissions, that is the major problem we are having in this country, because they are also being corrupted to give those guys a chance to be on the ballot box.
So you didn't have a choice but to elect this person?
No, we have got so many candidates. We have got so many candidates in our constituents who are running for that seat. But that person who is corrupt, who has killed, is the very person who is being led by the IEBC. So when we come at the ballot box, because I have found him on the ballot box and he has money, I'm forced to elect him.
You're forced.
So what we are saying is this.
You're forced to elect.
What we are saying is this. In this country, these commissions are the ones who are making Kenya go through a lot of problems.
Okay.
Because if they cannot work with the lines that corrupt people should not appear on ballot boxes, why are you clearing them to be on that ballot box?
We'll ask them to respond at some point. It's they're here,
Yeah.
so we'll ask them to respond. There's a few other people who want to.
Pass the mic,
Just as I finalize on that, we want to urge young people that don't just be in the media saying that we want 1 term or 2 term. Be participants. Don't just vote, also aspire for these positions for you to change this country. But if you keep singing that we want to change this regime and you are not a voter, you are not aspiring for these positions, who will change this country for you? Okay. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for this opportunity. I am Brian Odhiambo. I'm a community developer from Kibra. And for us to come up with viable solutions, then we must tell each other the truth. We must have candid conversations. And you see, let me take a swipe at our institutional heads who are seated here. Because some of them are telling us that it narrows down to the common mwananchi. But if you want to know the true nature of these institutional heads, then listen to them attending burial services in their villages with these politicians. That is when you'll realize that indeed, because what happens is we are so much into political patronage. So when this happens, when they attend these funeral services in their villages, then whatever is being said here won't be said there, because they are praising whoever took them into those offices. So let us have candid conversations if we want to move forward. Secondly, I think our institutions are too fragmented. That now we have EACC, we have ODPP, then we have the judiciary. How then do we ensure we have a Congress whereby if EACC can fully work with ODPP and the judiciary, so that if we are having a case of an individual who has some issues on integrity, then they are not supposed to be cleared in the first place to be on the ballot. The Kenyan electorate is emotional, and the politics of Kenya is about tokenism. So if you give them no choice, EACC has indeed allowed this person to vie, what do you expect the common mwananchi to do? Yes, so let us stop fragmentation of these institutions so that they can fully work together. If we have an issue, then let EACC work in tandem with ODPP and the judiciary.
Okay.
When all this is done, then I think we'll be having a candid conversations instead of pointing fingers. Yet all of us here in this room are not angels.
Thank you, Brian. Pass the mic to the end, and then I shall come to this side, back to this side.
Yes, I'm Derek Odhiambo Tieno. I'm a student. First of all, I would like to say that everybody has a role to play. The commission has a role to play. We citizens, we have a role to play. First of all, as citizens, are we patriotic enough? That is what we should ask ourselves. Do we love this country? And then we should not point fingers at everybody.
What is the measure of patriotism?
Yeah?
What is the measure? Like the late Otieno Kajwang have asked, what is the measure? What is the patriotism-meter? Is there a measure of patriotism?
There's no measure, but let me tell you, the way we behave, the things that we do, in order for this country to become great, we can measure them from that angle. I think so. So when when the EACC and the Election Commission Board has given us bad candidates, we have good candidates on the ballot paper. We are not forced to vote for anyone. Everybody has a choice. We can vote for the good candidates. And then the second thing that is affecting Kenya is the tribalism part. We speak here very good, we condemn things, but when we go back to our villages in Muranga, we say, oh, Siguza Murema, that is mtu wetu. You know, we are not telling each other the truth. And I think so, as young people, the shortest avenue to violence, it is tribalism. And many people are joining politics to become wealthy. And I think the Ndegwa Commission has really cost this country much. Thank you.
I know we're coming to this side. We'll hear from a few of you. And then very briefly, because this is a unique chance, a lot of the folks here are talking about the institutions. They're challenging the institutions. They're challenging the follow-through of the institutions, some of which are in the room. So we'll come back and ask you, but yes, one of you had your?
Kidogo tu kabla wino mkono.
Sawa.
Naitwa Geoffrey Regi. Mimi ni protocol officer, office of the governor.
Governor wapi?
Governor wa Nairobi. Mimi Kenya naweza penda kusema ni ya kwanza, si ni nchi ya watu wanabonga tu. Sisi ni watu kabla tuseme sijui integrity, institution, politician, tumegeuka nation ya watu wanabonga tu. We talk a lot. Na sasa tukapata hiyo kuongea, unapata kila wiki kuna topic mpya, kuna kitu nyingine. Lakini hakunaga vitu zenye
no action.
Hata actions itakuwa, lakini hatu concentrate nazo. We are just creating new conversation. So through you create hizo new conversation, muna create new division. Kama nchi unapata Mkenya peke yake, huyo Kenyan voter ndiye anafaa kuwa genius. Nasikiza institution ama nasikiza vile mnasema. Naona hizi vitu zote unataka huo voter ajue. Unataka ajue ni DCC, ni DCP, hii ni institution gani. Like a Kenyan voter anafaa kuwa genius. Ndiye sikakose. Kwa sababu kuko na so much thing anafaa kujua. Like ukikuwa na hii kesi, hufai kuambia polisi wa kawaida, hii ni ya DCI. Ukiwa na hii kesi nyingine, hufai kuambia polisi. Ukienda kwa IEBC, kuna polisi wa IEBC. So as a country bado tunafaa ku-embrace hiyo modernity. Sana hawa Gen Z. Wacha kungoja hawa watu at institution waende wachunge kitu yenyewe inajengwa. Umse ata investigate, akupe list, akienda kupeleka ambiwe, wewe sio prosecutor. Leta hiyo list, prosecute. Prosecutor ni Murio huo president, ama deputy president. Hafikiwi. Endeni hapo chini. Kama ni siku ya uchaguzi, wacha kuwagina watu. Wacha hiyo kitu ikuwe live. Vile unashindanga hapo sijui live, sijui nini. Weka hiyo kitu live kwa area yako. Kabla IEBC akwambia mtu wako right, mtumie hiyo clip, muoneshe ufala awache. Kama ni mtu anajenga kitu yenu, kabla tuende kusema sijui public participation, sijui chief ataangalia sijui nini atafanya, wewe tumia tu data yako hapo. Wekeni hapo kamera kwa hiyo mjengo. Hiyo mjengo ikichukua miaka 7, wacha data yetu ipotee. Tukikumbusha project akiamko mwambie, hebu ingia live area fulani, hiyo mradi endelee. Watu hiyo kitu ishamea. So I think bado tunahitaji kuchange vile tunachukulia nchi yetu,
citizen vigilance.
Tuangalie kuendelea mbele. Tunajaji nchi yenye imegharimu vitu mingi sana kufika mahali imefika.
Asante.
Watu wamepigwa nini, lakini sasa tuangalie hii nchi ni aje watu pia tutawasaidia. Institution unaweza penda kublame mtu, useme wengine unasikia wanakuambia hapana ni media, hapana ni lawyer, hapana hii blame game tunarushiana. Inafanya I make sense sana.
Patia msema hapa mbele.
Great. My name is Christopher, the incoming member of parliament for Ndia constituency. I have 3 quick things to say. Number 1, free lunch is only found in a mousetrap. So whenever you are asked to line up by a politician to get free money, look around for the trap, because it is around. Number 2, I will borrow the words of 17th century French economists who said, when plunder and theft becomes the way of life for a group of men in a society, over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. And that is the situation we are in as a country. I'll give you an example. In my county, Kirinyaga County, there's a certain leader who was mentioned adversely in the NYS scandal. But upon that platform was actually the campaign platform upon which they ascended to a very high office. Because we have formed a moral code that glorifies corruption. Number 3, we cannot change that which we tolerate. And as long as we tolerate corruption, I hear my sister who wants to run for office, but she is also tolerating the fact that they are being asked to line up and receive this free lunch, which is in a mousetrap. As long as we tolerate such behaviors, we will never change anything. We'll continue having these conversations, but will not fix the nation. And lastly, it's a Bible verse, because most of those who are ascended to power in this country use the Bible to get there. And it said that the love of money is the root of all evil. All the evil that we see in Kenya from our leadership is because of the love of money. Money loved by the leaders and money loved by the voters. Until we kill that gene of loving money, we will never change this country.
Thank you for that. I think she's had her hand up for some... Oh, sorry, go ahead and then you...
Okay, thank you, Janet and Latif. My name is Lemayan. Thank you for having me here. I will talk through the conversation, but through a different angle. Still within Article 38, I do have a problem with the concept of universal suffrage. We all are blaming the voters. When I look at Kenya, when I look at most companies that are really doing great, top executives, they choose the very best. Who chooses them? You find there is a board, there is a committee of experts who chooses the very finest people. But when we come to a country like Kenya, we say every person reserves the right to vote. One man, one vote. It is your political right. But I do have a problem when you leave significant positions, significant things that change the trajectory of a nation to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. It is not that I'm saying the people who don't understand political rights should not have that right, but we need to put it in a way that when it comes to governance, when you look at a country like Iran, they have been bombed through and through and through, but their governance system is quite effective. They have a supreme leader, they have a supreme council of advisors. When we have a country like Kenya, we need to have a very serious but radical conversation about who votes. When my vote as Lemayan, because I understand the problems that our country are facing, I will not be easily influenced by 100 shillings, 500 shillings. It will take higher persuasion to convince someone like me who's learned than to someone who will easily who will vote for someone who will determine the changes in his governance structure for the next 5 years simply because he's been given 500. My vote should not be equated the same as someone else who does not understand the consequences of poor leadership.
So what do we do? How do we determine the weight of your vote?
I believe it is a structure that we will get to that conversation. But we first need to acknowledge that the universal suffrage of one man, one vote is what in fact has brought us to this.
It's bogging us down.
Yes.
I have some sort of agreement. Jano and I have had this debate. One day we'll bring it and actually
and it
we'll
dates back
invite you.
to the Greek.
Yes.
Somebody who actually came up with that, yes, but it's a conversation for another day. There's two people behind
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I go first? Madam microphone. My name is Wanje Kotiga, the National Youth Leader for DCP Party, and I want to speak from the reality on the ground. Especially as a young woman who was at the center of the by-elections. Both where I led the Kariobangi North by-elections where we won, and then when I went also to West Cabras where we matched position 2. Reality ya ground ni watu hawana do. It's survival voting right now. And the things that I saw, the electoral fraud that I saw were quite astonishing. Unacheki candidate wa chama ingine is buying ID cards. Is giving you 3,000, let ID. I'll give it back to you when? Jioni, when the election is over. And you see somebody had a job, they need school fees, they need the next meal. They're like, you see, when I vote for anyone who goes into power, they don't even remember me or consider me. So you know what, let me take this 3,000 bob, I give out my ID, we'll talk later. So that is the reality on the ground. And this is where the state has put Monanchi at, that they are at a very bad place economically, that they can only just depend on that amount of money and handouts that are being given. So when we speak here about, morality, ethicality, that's not the reality of Kenyan Monanchi by the on the ground. I was in West Cabras, Malava. Do you know since independence that area doesn't have lights? Hakuna electricity. Since post-63, it is over 50 years, hawana lights. That person, obviously, you cannot put your mindset with the same place as that person. So, kwenda kumwambia usichukue hii pesa, ati ndo usivote, anakuona mbono unaninyima. That person survives on $1 a day. So the reality is that this money that is being handed out by, especially by state, because as DCP party, let me speak from where I come, we don't have that kind of money, actually, because I sit in NEC. I'm a national youth leader. So we are not spending money, we are not giving out money at all. Yes. We don't even access the political parties fund.
Okay.
I'll let if you know that, because we are just a new party. So we are not giving out money. We are there asking people, can we vote in right leaders? If you can see the candidates that we also give nomination to run on a DCP party ticket, they are people who with ethically tested. And that is the place where young people are doing in the party, actually, pushing for such kind of reforms. Because by the way, it's a do or die moment for young people in this country.
So how do you circumvent that, Wanjiko? Because reality on the ground is that this person wants money.
Yes.
And therefore they'll accept money.
Yeah.
And then you're going here with your ethics that, we are an ethical party and all, but pia chama yenu ni ya kusikiza ground.
Yes.
So kama ground imewaambia toeni pesa, mbona mtoi pesa?
Sasa sisi tuna hiyo ya kutoa, lakini tunaambia msee, mimi na understand situation yako. Mimi siwezi hata kusaidia na mili ya kesho. Chukua hiyo do, but wacha nikwambie ukienda kwa ballot tu msee atakuwa hapo kucheki who you are voting in.
So take the money from the other guy.
Yeah. And
it's not confusing people when you do that?
It is not, because, again, Janet, we speak from a place of privilege. Like, I can afford my next meal, I can afford Uber, but that person, they live in mud houses, they don't have lights, they survive on sugarcane farming. Again, go back and look at what the sugarcane industry, what's happening. So it is a reality that you're trying
Are they able to connect all these things to leadership?
Yes.
In a way?
Yes, because...
So then so we are saying that they eat from this other person, and because they have money, they are not a good leader, and then vote for this person who doesn't have money because they're a good leader.
Yes, because you're able to justify and show
Since
where the money is coming from.
How many times has this person voted? If we assume that this is, a 50-year-old person, they have participated in several elections.
Yes.
They took money from the wrong guy, voted for the right guy. One time. Second time, no lights. They took money again from the second wrong guy, voted for the right guy.
No, it's not been that way. It's not been that way.
Third time,
it hasn't been that way.
Took money from the wrong guy.
They've always taken money from the wrong guy and voted the wrong guy in.
They took
Actually,
yes,
from the wrong guy and voted the wrong guy. What we are trying to sensitize people is that they don't owe you anything. Because when you understand, when you bring this person back, or when you vote this person to power, then this is how then the corruption is systematically put into place, because now this was an investment to them, because the political power did not come from the citizens, it came from cash. Okay. So that's what we are talking to people, and also even young people even clearly understand that. So the work is more even with the older generation.
Yeah.
Again, just to answer, because I've heard some people mention about the exchange of words between a party leader and the president. You see, I want to read the Constitution. In Article 144, I need to say...
Steve, here is the Constitution being quoted.
It's to say, a member of Article 144, a member of the National Assembly, separated by at least a quarter of all members, may move a motion for the investigation of President's physical or mental capacity to perform the functions of the office. What my party leader, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, was simply putting across was, we are concerned about the health of the President. Yes. He said. Okay. He said.
Conclude them.
Yes, and even actually as the citizens of this country, if you've seen the President's photos of late, they're quite shocking.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's what he meant.
Yes.
He's going to. He thinks that the president is of ill health, and he's going to torment him further for the next 15 months.
No, what we are saying, allow me, no. Let's if I'm disappointed.
Please summarize. Yes, we can get a few.
So what we are saying, like even in the Western, both Biden and Trump, there were also the citizens of USA demanded, a medical report of how the president was, and as presidents they give. So as citizens of this country, we want to have a report of the state of the health of our president.
Okay, pause there. We're going to, your party leader, the president, have no business talking the way they're talking. I think if you want to demand the health of somebody, you can say, Mr. President, we are concerned about your health, but the vulgarity of what we've witnessed is not something that we
politics. It's
I know a lot of people will say. It's politics.
Yeah.
That's why we're here today.
Yes, and politics is also
it's enabling what we are trying to address. I know somebody can look at me and be like, where would you mchezo wa town? It's fine. I don't know. What I don't get is how I was telling Eric earlier. I've been trying to explain to my kids. They were like, I'm like, I don't even know where to start. Breaking down. There's a vulgarity. I know your party leader knows what he's doing. I know he knows it's politics. Mwongeleshe tafadhali. As we also hold the president and other party leaders to account. I think it's important to say that. I
have the mic.
Yeah,
please
thank you, Wanjiko. Yes, then we'll come back.
Please allow me.
Yes,
thank you so much. My name is Habib Omar. I'm a public noisemaker. I make a lot of noise, but noise of value because of our silent skills. Let me speak from experience as someone who fight in the concluded by-election Karibanga in 2025. Wanasema kwa ground reality ni different. But I'll be able to say I don't want always shifting the blame to the institutions and even our leaders. Naturally, fundamentally, we are flawed. Because I always say that Kenyans know what they don't want, but they don't know what they want. That is the reality. And by nature, we are all corrupt. It is only that we haven't get that opportunity to steal. That is the reality. Because, and I want to tell Comrade Wanjiku, because today it'll take 1,000 bob to vote for a certain leader. It is a meal for one day. And the rest of 5 years, because things are not working. That the reality is, we are coming from the by-election. Right now, we're facing challenges of water. So you took 200 bob to vote for a leader, but right now you're using more than 3,000 in search of something like water. So the reality is it has to trickle down to we the people, because change comes with a price tag that we as the people must be willing to be able to pay. Yeah. Because the reality is I was on the ground campaigning. I'm known within the community, I've been working within the community, but within the space that I am, I cannot bring a lasting change to the problems ailing our people. That is why I'm seeking this position, so that I can be in a better position to do oversight, representation, and pass legislation that can be able to respond to the needs of the people. But people are telling you, mkono tupu, I lambui. In fact, I was given the new name, John Cena, because you don't have the money. Wow. That is the reality. You see, so it's a conversation. It's a holistic conversation that we need to be able to have, and it's trickled back to Article 10 of the Constitution in terms of our values. Okay. What do we believe in, and what inform our decision and choices at the ballot box.
Let's pause there. We want to bring it back to the panelists, but even as I do that, Eric, I think it's important to validate everything that's coming from the room. Yeah. We can disagree with Kinawanjiko, we can disagree with others. They are actually talking about chenye wanaona. So I want you guys to know, we are validating, we just need to interrogate. We can validate and say, I know, you have proximity to people, so we can't sit here and be like, no, don't do it. It's just about interrogating, because that proximity, I'm sure, informs you as well. That's why we find ourselves in a cycle of corruption.
As we come back, some feedback online. Some says, it's good to have the conversation, but if we don't have civic education to the masses that vote, we will never progress as a country. Then there's Jimmy who says, they say the poor man needs to eat today, not next year, not tomorrow. Mkisi anasema, huyu anasema mkienda voting card mwende na degree. Niwe unaulizwa. And then he says, tuko kadi. So we have a measure of patriotism. Yes, we have a measure for patriotism, and that is adherence to the Constitution and the rule of our national law. And that's a question that asks, what's the measure? And then Charles says, issue of kula pesa ni yenu, I totally agree. I totally disagree. It's an abomination because our money should be used for essential purposes and not for handouts. Yeah.
All right. Can we get some quick responses? Because the institutions we heard a lot were EACC, IEBC. Very quick feedback so that we can still open up the room before we end. So I think IEBC. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so my name is Kaka. I'm the chair for the Kenya Devolution Youth Society, the Youth Caucus Kenya. And I wanted to ask a question because I know a lot has been said. And anytime an election is done and the opposition loses, they find a way by which this kind of tie knots. If you look at, for example, what is happening now in Kenya, there's kind of, okay, someone persuaded me that we vote for only two reasons. One is revenge, and another one is sympathy. So if you're violated somehow by the people in the government, you are going to try use all your ways possible for you people to see the sympathy in you. But I have a question to the panelists who are here. First, to the IEBC, and I want to ask about how independent is IEBC? Because we've seen cases that people vote and the returning officers are given money and they announce people like, they don't even go to an exact details of like whether the votes that were collected from different places, like the exact votes that people have. They just declare this particular person is a winner on a token of how much they have been given. Then number two, matters corruption.
Are you saying that from knowledge that you have?
Yes,
or
yes.
From
Yes. I can substantiate
language
that. This is from the knowledge that I have. But I'm pretty sure probably they have also come to such cases, one or two.
Okay.
And then number two, our police independent. How is the police service independent in SA? Because when someone breaks the law, the first people to arrest them are the police, and you being arraigned in court, and then we have also having cases in this country whereby the police has been used to like violate human rights, like what we say the Gen Z in the 2024. But then the end notes of all this, someone knows someone in a big office, so because he's a senior police officer, was brought to office by somebody
so it's
else.
Independence of our institutions.
It just die like that.
Okay.
So if they can just respond that, we're going to.
Thank you. I will start with the first question regarding our gentleman from Tongaren on the aspect of vetting. The vetting process starts with the ballot. I choose to somewhat disagree slightly about that because our elections don't start at the ballot. They start with political parties where they select either through party primaries or they give them direct nomination or indirect nomination.
According to their party constitution.
Yes. So when that happens, they submit to the commission certain documents. And the first document that they submit to the commission is a self-declaration form under the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Leadership and Integrity Act. And that document normally gives the commission information regarding the education, moral fitness, their family, details. It has a lot of details of all the political candidates, for that matter. So when that happens, you have to look at it from this perspective that the commission can only do so much because we are guided by the law, we respect the rule of law, and that is the law that we implement. So unless something changes on that, it might not be possible for us to do much about it. But even so, I remember there was a gentleman who was saying, we are the ones who select these people when they come to the ballot. Why not shift that narrative, so that we have the vetting process to start at the political parties before it comes to the commission? Because when you look at it from that perspective, then it means that the commission will only be guided by what is before it, right? And I think when we say that voting has become transactional, it can only be, we only have a giver and a taker.
Mm-hmm.
So there is someone who is guilty of taking and someone who is guilty of giving. So I think that on the aspect of vetting, we need to think more and consider looking at the provisions that were mentioned by my brother from EACC, Article 99.3. Because when we have that provision of allowing persons who have matters either under investigation, they have not been prosecuted, they have not been charged, what do you want the commission to do? Okay? Because at the end of the day, that person has a right to be heard, a right to file an appeal, and a right to have that matter concluded. So it might not be possible for the IEBC to say, we are ignoring that law and saying that we are removing you from that. Now, on the last question that was posed by my neighbor here, I haven't seen such a claim, and that claim can only be filed before a court of law in an election petition. So I think that will be the modality for him to approach, yes, or file formally before the commission. Thank you.
Danvas.
Thanks, Eric and Janet. I'm perplexed here a little bit. I'm not sure we're in the same
country.
Not even country, even a meeting, because let me just first of all start with the issue of blame. I think from Sheila's explanation about the report and the research they did, they highlight one of the challenges that these specific institutions do face, whether it's IEBC, EACC. I'm not sure whether everybody has an opportunity to see that report, but actually she stated it here, the challenges that they face. My good friend here, John, actually has stated clearly what they are supposed to do and not do. So I think it behooves us to have, I thought people listened, and even my friend Steve actually was very particular with what the law requires and the threshold that is there, so to speak. So because that was what we started, so that I think I thought people would clearly understand the roles and the limitations, both legally and financially, and the reality of how this should operate in the context that we are right now today. Because if they did that, they realize, okay, are there failures within the institutions? Yes, specific ones, yeah. But generally speaking, there's only so much you can do per law. Now, let me just state this because I might not find a chance. You see, Hobbes states that the state is a reflection of the nature of the people who created it. Okay? And this is collective. So when I say us, it's everybody in this state. So the question here is, two questions. Why was Chapter 6 there? Why was it specifically put there? Secondly, did Kenyans change before 2009 and 2011? Are they the same Kenyans? We need to understand that. Did Kenyans change? Are they the same Kenyans who were there before the new constitution and after? Because it's important we understand that. And why? Was Chapter 6 there as an ideal aspiration, we need to get there? Or is it a torch in a dark room that says the fuse box is blown, fixed it? Because those two approaches need to understand that. Because listening to just the general conversation, it proves that what I've been trying to say here, its fundamental nature here actually is flawed. And the first thing, Janet, to answer your question is this, that when you go to a doctor, you ask, what do we need to do to change? When you go to a doctor, the first thing they do is diagnosis. Ukona shida hapa. Unakubali kwanza, because then there's a diagnosis first before there's a prescription, right? So when we understand fundamentally with a problem, I don't know, we talked about behavior change. Behavior change begins when you say, okay, to Rashida, then we need to change. And then this is the steps to change. So when there's that collective acknowledgement that, you know what, as a nation, our nature, this is who we are as a people. So then what we do? We need to do 1, 2, 3. Then another thing is gonna change.
We accept. I'm cognizant of time, and I know I still wanted very quick feedback from EACC and Transparency International Kenya. We're very short. We have like 5 minutes, so I'll hear from you and Jane as well. The gentleman there and Jane, and then we'll come back and get some closing remarks.
Good morning. I'm Moshe Ahuma. I have problems with IEBC because currently, where I come from, where we are coming from, the people are already using their voters card in trading, because unapata huko kwetu saizi watu wanabadilisha kura, watu wananunua kura inabadilishwa. Unapata like last week unapata watu wanaenda mpaka Garissa, wanaenda wana change kura huko, wanapeleka kura huko ndio warudishe huko kwetu. So IEBC is sleeping on the job
Shida iko wapi hapo?
Kwa sababu we don't have laws that protect our voters. Hiyo ni shida, kwa sababu huyu ni mtu mwenye si anaenda abadilishe tena after 1 week tena anarudi anabadilisha anapeleka huruma. Hatuna sheria zenye zina protect huyu voter ati akuwe tu na hiyo vote yake mahali yako. Huyu mwenye anaweza badilisha kura saa hizi apeleke huruma, apeleke Kilimani, apeleke Garissa. Next time huyu ukimletea 500 atauza hiyo vote. So I think IEBC is sleeping on the job. Ukipata hizi billboard already saa hizi kuna aspirant wako na billboard anataka kuwa governor, unapata ni 250,000 every month. Ametoa pesa wapi? IEBC may allow. We are not in the campaigning period already, but IEBC may allow posters na banners uko nje. We are not yet in an electioneering period, so that is already a problem.
Thank you, Janet and Latif. I'm Jane from Kawangware. I'm a CHP, community health promoter, and also I'm a women leader.
Jen, soma tafadhali.
Niko mbali sana. Thank you. Kulingana na vile conversation inaenda, nasikia inaenda vizuri sana, lakini niko na shida kidogo kwa mambo ya integrity. 1 year ago, nilikuwa hapa live na Latif na Janet, na nikaongelea kuhusu mambo ya Salim Road. Salim Road iko Kawangware, Katina Ward, to be precise. Na nimekuwa nikiongea kuhusu mambo ya hiyo barabara kutoka hata before nikuje last year kwa NTV. Even huko nyuma tukiwa na forums huko nilikuwa naenda na tunaongeleshana. After ile siku tuliongeleshana na Latif and Janet, Murita town hall, tukaenda pale KNCHR. Secretary wa county akakuja. Kukuja pale, Latif akamuuliza, Jane amekuwa akiongea kuhusu mambo ya Salim Road. Mwambie hiyo road itamalizwa lini, kwa sababu ako capable of doing so na kujua ile time inaweza chukua. Aliniambia, na hiyo ilikuwa mwezi wa 4, alisema by mwezi wa 6, June last year, Salim Road itakuwa imeisha. Na mpaka wa leo hakuna hata kanaitwa gravel kamawe kamerushwa mahali pale. Walisimama hapo, wakasimamia hapo, na tukawa tena tuko na hizi vikao. Tunaitwa ndio tuongelee mambo ya development kwetu. Kila siku mimi naongea kuhusu mambo ya Salim Road. So mambo ya integrity hapo hakuna kabisa. Na mama mboga kule nyumbani, kwa sababu hata mimi nasimamia mama mboga, tunaumia kabisa kwa sababu ya hiyo Salim Road. Ina connect two wards, Katina Ward na Kabiro Ward in Dagoretti North. Sasa mimi nauliza, wale wenye wanahusika na mambo ya construction of roads, hata kama MCA wangu wako, MCA anaangalia aone itatengenezwa lini, lakini wale wana fund, kwa sababu Salim Road imekuwa ikifandiwa every financial year na hakuna kitu inaendelea kwa ground. So hapo mimi niko na twashishi kama mama mboga, tunaangushwa na motorbike. Hiyo ingine nayo ni mambo na elections, ama ku aspire for selectives, inaitwa elective seat. Kama Jane, mimi nasikia nisimame Katina Ward, nikuwe MCA pale. Lakini sasa Jane atakuwa protected aje as a woman, kwa sababu women hawana nafasi nzuri kwa sababu ya mambo na gender. Jane akienda kusema atasimama Kawangware Katina Ward, wewe uko na nini ya kutupatia? What do you have? Na wewe ni mama mboga tu. Sasa na pengine mimi niko na uwezo wa kuendeleza Katina Ward. Nitasaidika aje kupitia zile bodies zote zenye zinasimamia mambo kama hayo. Jambo lingine nauliza
Jane, kwa nini mama mboga ambaye unataka kupigia kura?
Yes.
Kwa nini anakuitisha pesa?
Mimi hata niitisha pesa, lakini kuna zile logistics, for example, kama ni kwenda kwa forum, hiyo hall, mimi sina pesa ya kulipa. Wale mama mboga wenye wanajua Jane, hawatamuitisha pesa kwa sababu kuna ile kitu wanaona Jane amefanya, hata kama ni kusimama hivi kuwaongelesha, tuendeni public participation ndio tuweze kupitisha zile vitu zinatuhusu. Okay. Hawa mama wana shida kwa sababu wanajua Jane anasema hiki na kinafanyika.
Okay.
Hata kama ni nini, whatever they want to know, watajua. So wanajua Jane akiwa kwa ile negotiating table atafanya zaidi ya vile hata anafanya hapa. Kwa hivyo tukimpatia nafasi inawezekana.
Jen, asante. Wacha tuachie hapo because of time.
Thank you very much.
We only have like 2 minutes to go and we'd like to hear from Professor Marion Mutugi and also from John and from Sheila.
Just very
The
briefly.
challenge we are going through is not unique. The other countries that have gone through it, in Japan, they name and shame. We have lost all sense of shame. Here you do all kinds of things and you walk with your head high.
We name and glorify.
There are three reasons why somebody does something. One, because it is the right thing to do, because you have a duty to do it. Two, you can do it because you're afraid of the consequences. Three, because it's your character. Here, I believe what will work is the consequences. If people are queuing to get money, let the institutions that are mandated to do this, let them come and swoop the whole lot, including the giver and those who are given, and things will change. That is how the Asian tigers rose. Not by saying we are going to Singapore, but acting the way Singapore did. Today in Singapore, there are things that you do and you go to the gallows and it's not negotiated.
Thank you for that point. Well said.
Thank you very much. To borrow from the name of your program, to fix the nation, we have to liberate our values, because that is where we have lost them, at the family level, at the schools, and even in churches. And this journey of promoting ethics and integrity is a journey for all of us. I want to commit that as EACC, we will continue to do our part diligently, faithfully, and objectively, and in accordance with the law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think for me, we've talked a lot about the institutions. How do we strengthen the interagency collaboration? How do we ensure that these agencies are working together, sharing information on, declaration of assets, declaration of conflicts of interest, and any other criminal records? I think the other aspect is we just need moral courage also from these institutions. Just do it. Do what the law gives you the mandate to do. I think we also need some judicial clarification. We've talked a lot about the conflicting provisions within the Constitution, Article 99 and 193. Do we apply the criminal standards or the moral and ethical standards? But there's an interesting outcome from, was it the Kericho High Court just last month or early this month, on the suitability of someone, I think it was one of the KTDA directors, who had been accused of sexual abuse. And the court rightly said that he is unfit to hold office, even if he had not been convicted yet. So I think we already have something to ride on to just put, Chapter 6 on the right course. The other pathway I see, which is important towards getting leaders with integrity, who do not corrupt voters, who don't dirty the political context, is regulation of election campaign financing. And how do we ensure that we don't have dirty money in the elections? How do we regulate what amounts are spent, the sources, who's funding, the third-party sources, foreign sources, and so on? I think it's important to really look at the issue of campaign financing. I think Ruth set us off towards that discussion. I think we'll need an entire show to just talk about what needs to be done, but we must regulate and ensure that there's full disclosure of who's funding campaigns.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all of you. Unfortunately, we are completely out of time. We do have to cross over for Your World on NTV and also Vibe Shift on Nation FM. But from me, Janet Bugwa, from Eric Lati, from Marion Bishar as well, let's also just continue to engage in these conversations, and we'll see you again here soon. Thank you.